Committee meeting on the 7th of May 2025. I'd just like to advise everybody that we are being live streamed and please turn off your mobile phones or put them on silent. We'll potentially take a break at 11 depending on how the morning goes. I'd now like to start us off with a karakia and invite Councillor Kiriopa, please.
Thank you, Morena. Can you hear me? Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho. Ka tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, hui e.
Thank you, Councillor Kiriopa. Let's move now on to item 2, apologies. I've got an apology from Councillor Kaifong and Councillor Brown. I also have an apology from Mayor Tapsell for lateness. Is there any other apologies, councillors? There appear to be none. Could I have a mover for the apologies? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Second, Councillor Wadu. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? There appear to be none. I'd just like to now move on to item 4, urgent items. Councillors, this is an item to accommodate Standing Order 9.1 and 9.13, discussion of minor matters not on the agenda as well. I'd just like to advise that we have an urgent item brought by the CE today. This matter is a property-related opportunity, and the reason for it not being on the agenda today is because it was brought to the attention of the staff after the agenda had been published. This matter cannot wait, but for timing reasons. And Councillor O'Brien is happy to move, and Councillor Maxwell is happy to second that this matter be accepted onto the agenda today. And this is a presentation only, there'll be no decision making. So the resolution is that a presentation relating to a property related opportunity be received at this meeting in the public excluded session because there are commercially sensitive matters to be discussed. So all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Now there's no other urgent items to my knowledge. Is there any minor matters today? First, Councillor Patterson, then Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as I indicated via email, today is a very special day that I'd like to commemorate. Thanks again for allowing this. Today is the 80th anniversary of the victory in Europe. And it's important that we honour the men and women who fought to protect our country during World War II. So on this day at 2:41 a.m. on the 7th of May, General Alfred Jodl of the German Armed Forces signed the full and unconditional surrender of all land and seaborne forces. Due to the time delay, that was not announced in New Zealand by our media until the 8th of May, I should say. So during that war, 12,000 New Zealanders died, gave their lives. While that might not be a huge number, by comparison to the likes of the Soviet Union and other nations, at that time our country population was only 1.6 million. So that's a very high percentage. An estimated 140,000 New Zealanders served overseas. In all, 67% of Kiwi men aged between 18 and 45 served in the armed forces. On a per capita basis, this country's losses were the highest in the Commonwealth. Approximately 1 out of every 150 New Zealanders died on service. To our surviving veterans, we offer our thanks to you and your generation for securing our freedom 80 years ago. So right now I'd just like to ask for a moment's silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, and thank you for those thoughts for those who served our country and made it what it is today. Thank you. Councillor Lee, you had a minor matter?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Patterson, for that. My teenage parents at this time 80 years ago were dancing in the streets, I can tell you, as were the rest of London had been bombed. There's a item mentioned in the minutes that are coming up, I'm not necessarily suggesting that the minutes are incorrect, but I would like to discuss a matter in the minutes on page 8 of our agenda. It says that I referred to an action point in the March meeting, and I asked if the results on water quality on the Council's website had been updated. It records in the minutes here that Mr. Michael noted that comprehensive tests are done every 5 years, in addition to regular monitoring. The results of the 2025 will be published once the testing finishes over the next few weeks. I think what I initially requested was that both sets of data be published on the website so that anybody is free to make a comparison before and after the fluoridation process.
Thank you, Councillor. I will note that the comprehensive testing that's done every 5 years, the results are on the website, and those will be updated when the next lot of testing is done, I believe, in August. With regards to the remainder of the testing, I'll just actually have to seek advice from our staff whether that's actually possible to have that data on the website. If Stavros may be able to comment now, or we might have to defer this matter to another time. Is there anything you'd like to add, Stavros?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The water testing is done on a regular basis to identify the amount of chlorine and pathogens residual in the water as required by the drinking water standards. That's happening on a very monthly basis or even daily basis online. The tests that considerably relates to the 5-year assessment, compares some 600 impurities into the system, taking it every 5 years. Obviously, fluoride is one of those impurities into the system, and knowing the data from a previous previous 5 years, and then in the next 5 years, obviously that will be consistent with having a comparison whether the base levels have increased or remain static. So that will be published as you go along.
Sorry, the 2020 is going to be published? The 2020 data? That was my question. I got
the 2020 are on the website already.
The 2020 is on the website already?
Yeah. And the next levels of testing will take place in August.
Okay.
And again, I made an error of timing in my last comment in a few weeks, but the last testing took place, or published testing was done in December 2020. So the testing will commence in August, and so can be ready before the 5 year. And those results will be on our website again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, could I just bring up the matter in regards to it's been in the media and also was highlighted to us in a heads up on Monday, just in regards to the issues around iPark. Sorry. I just wanted to ask some questions, if possible, that have been put forward to me by members of the public. Were there no transactions accepted by iPark? It just seems strange that, like, was it just individual, was it only the app use first that was affected? Like, infringements and fines are okay, or we're still looking into that? Or sorry, iPark's looking into that.
I imagine that they still are looking into it and there's an investigation underway, but I'll just ask to see if you'd like to make any comments or answer your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, Councillor O'Brien, I can share some information based off what I've got. What I understand, and I got an update this morning from staff, was that there was an issue with the timing of transactions. So to answer your question, it was not all transactions that were delayed, but some. I don't know what portion of transactions. We're looking into that. But at this point, we have no evidence that there were any duplicate or transactions that shouldn't have occurred. It was purely what we've seen as evidence of timing of transactions being processed much later than they were carried out in person. And we don't have an understanding of what proportion of total transactions created were delayed. We are looking to get that from iPark. We've got an undertaking from iPark that they'll give us an update by the end of this week, and then at the next progress meeting in a week's time at the Community and District Development Committee meeting, staff will give all elected members an update on the progress of that investigation.
Thank you. So could I ask, as far as we know, was it only the app users that have this issue? So if I use the machine in town?
No, Councillor. There were some transactions that were including using machines that might have been paid. What we also understand is that the app registered the transaction as being complete. It's just the payment wasn't deducted. So we don't have any instances at this point whereby a parking transaction was done and then that person was infringed because it was registered in the system as a legitimate booking of the parking space. The issue appears to be around the processing of the payment for them.
Okay. Could I just ask, on the heads up on Monday that we provided to media, and obviously shared with councils, it says we would like to reassure customers that the charges applied relate to genuine previous parking stays. How are we able to guarantee that if there's an ongoing investigation?
Councillor, the intention wasn't to guarantee that, but was to indicate, based on the feedback that we had, we've only seen evidence of delayed payments and not of payments made or payments deducted that were not related to a genuine parking transaction. If through the investigation we see evidence to that, we will correct our media statements. But our media statements reflect the fact that all the evidence we have at this point is that they're purely delayed transactions and no evidence of duplicate or fraudulent transactions.
Thank you. And finally, could I just ask, for those that have suddenly received, and sorry, I'm just going by some of the things I've seen in response to the article that was in the Daily Post, for people that have suddenly had a very large amount of money removed out of their accounts, transferred out of their accounts, do we have any onus, or is there any, do you feel that we have an obligation to help those people out, should they request?
Councillor, can I await the outcome of this investigation, because there might be some commercial levers that we can apply to our providers depending on where the fault was, and I'll be able to give you a more complete answer on that when that is.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, for leading.
Thank you, Councillor, for raising that. Any further minor matters, councillors? There appears to be none. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee held on the 2nd of April. Are there any matters for correction in the minutes, councillors? There appear to be none. Could I have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting held on the 2nd of April be confirmed as true and correct? Thank you, Councillor Waru. Seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. There are no presentations in this part of the meeting today, so we'll move on to item 7, which is the staff reports. And 7.1 is the Critical Capital Delivery Project's Progress Report for March to April 2025. This is on page 13 of your agendas. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, that this report be received? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Seconded, Councillor Lee. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Today we've got 2 presentations, councillors. My apologies. The first one is from Elrond, and he brings with him Simon from Tonkin and Taylor. This was not in Stella, it is in your Stella now. Elrond is going to overview the report and just outline some key points that are in the report, and then we'll move on to the presentation from Thomas and Will. So welcome, Elrond. I'll let you introduce Simon appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is Simon Aiken. He's seconded to us from Tonkin and Taylor. He's supporting us with the programme that we previously referred to as IAF, the Infrastructure Acceleration Funded work. Now that we're actually into the programme and deeper into the execution, we're taking a broader programme view rather than just looking at the individual projects. So going forward, we'll be referring to the programme as the Enabling Infrastructure for Growth programme. So we'll keep referring back occasionally to the IAF until we've fully socialised it. But Simon's come to help us just kind of accelerate some of that work whilst we recruit into those positions. Just an explanation on the presentation as well. Apologies that it wasn't in the original pack. This is literally an executive summary of the report, so there's nothing new in there that hasn't been provided in the report. It's more of a visual aid to go along with my verbal update. So the major capital delivery team, the establishment of it is progressing well. We've started to standardise the way we're delivering our programmes of work. Just as a reminder, that includes our wastewater growth projects, our stormwater growth projects, and the museum programme. I'm not going to speak too much about the museum programme because Will and Thomas are going to be up next, and they'll give you a kind of a deeper dive into that. Lots of nice visuals, but work is progressing well. We're currently, touch wood, we'll remain ahead of schedule on that. And going forward, what I'd like to signal is the type of reporting that you're receiving on the museum, you'll receive across the other programmes as well. So lots more timeframes, visual aids, and kind of reminders of where we're at with the financials on those. For the wastewater treatment plant, we're well underway. We've probably got a year to 18 months of work left. I'll move on to some slides around some of the progress being made on the blower building that's being installed. But yeah, again, there'll be a more detailed update coming to the next committee meeting around the wastewater programme, very much in line with what we do with the museum. For the infrastructure investment for growth, I signalled in the previous paper that we were processing a variation order to that to consolidate the programme. And again, that's just more about stepping out and having this programme level view as opposed to individual projects. So essentially, like I say, I won't take the wind out of Will's sails, but the structural strengthening work is progressing well. I like to remind, we refer to the zones quite a lot, so I'll be using this visual quite a lot going forward, because I have to remind myself kind of, which direction we're working in sometimes as well. So the strengthening work's going well. I think everybody's aware of some of the historic issues we've had with this building. It's very unique. It's one of the most unique projects in New Zealand, and the fact that we've managed to get our arms around it and it's progressing so well is a testament to the team. So for the wastewater treatment plant, so the focus on the actual plant itself has been the fit out of the blower building. Just for the benefit of the committee, this building effectively pumps air into the bacteria that's used to actually treat the contaminated water. So it's quite important that that is regulated well. If you look on the bottom right-hand side, that image there of the pipe, to get an idea of the scale of a lot of the pipe work that's kind of going through the facility. We can look at these things and, from a construction point of view, which is certainly my background, it's pipes, it's buildings, but you see the scale of some of this stuff, and then, with scale comes complexity. So just wanted to share that. The focus, the construction's well in hand, and like I say, as we kind of come toward completion, we're having more targeted conversations around the recovered water solution. So I understand that there will be a councillor workshop later today to go in detail of that. Going forward, we'll be reporting on both the wastewater treatment plant and the recovered water solution. And then this is probably where I've been spending most of my focus for the last month, along with Simon, is the infrastructure investment for growth programme. So I think what's happened is historically we've kind of reported on a project-by-project basis. What we want to look at is actually not the, we're effectively installing dams, pump stations, pipes and detention ponds, to summarise. But what we're actually looking to work toward is the outcome. So, the outcome that we've signed up for is to enable 3,000 new homes, and there's a cascade of, economic and community benefits that come along with that type of growth. So we're actually looking at a network solution. So the idea is if you pull out any one of these projects, it will impact the outcome. So we're trying to look at it holistically as opposed to individual project solutions. The focus of the work, really at the moment, we're in feasibility on most things, but those top 3 collections at the top are all geared essentially to enable the PC2 support area. So that's the box on the far middle left of the diagram that indicates the locations of the dams at Mangakakehi, the Linton East Dam, and the PC2 support projects. So we're focusing on those, working with landowners and developers to ensure that the stormwater solution meets their needs so that they can get the greatest yield and maximise the benefit of the land that they're developing for housing. So I appreciate there's quite a lot there. We're covering various programs and various subjects, but if anybody has anything they would like to ask, feel free.
Thank you, Elrond, and welcome, Simon. Nice to have you here. I will just note, councillors, that some of the information that is in the report today is confidential, and so if there's any questions on those confidential pages that you received with your agenda packs, we'll just save those questions for the public excluded part, but you're welcome to ask Elrond and Simon anything you'd like about this presentation and what's in the report. And Councillor Patterson, you had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll save that for confidential.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Looks like there's nothing at this stage anyway, so thank you, Elrond. Appreciate the overview, and maybe there'll be some questions later for you to answer. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you. Kia ora. Now, the second part of today's item 7.1 is a presentation from the museum team. Thomas Collet and Will Bamford are going to go through a presentation for us, an overview where we're at with the museum strengthening project. Morena, gentlemen, and I'll hand it over to you to overview your presentation. Thank you.
Morena. Cool. Kia ora. As Elrond said, we are going well in progress. So the focus since we met with you last in March for an update has been zones 2 and 3 in the basement. So we're focusing on foundations and bracing steel to support the rest of the structural steel work that's occurring in the building. Zone 1 and 2 of the structural strengthening has gone in, and we're now lining those buildings, and that'll be closed out in the coming months, so they'll start to look more like finished buildings such as we're sitting in. Zone 3 and 4, we've still got full focus on the structural strengthening, and we'll look at a few pictures of that shortly. And the roof is going really strongly in the northern section of the building, which is the zones 4 through to 6, and we're still on track to be off that roof by September. We have 50 to 60 staff on site every day, and about 30% of them are from Rotorua, and the rest travel from outside of a region. So this is just sort of showing you where we're at. So we're at week 42 of 101 weeks, and it's a bit hard to see on the screen, but there's a little green bar which shows you where you are. So we're in the stage now where we've sort of gone from a big chunk of work in the zones 1 and 2 in the basement, and now we're pushing through into the rest of the building. This is an example of zone 2, and so we looked at the picture on the left last in March, and then it's a bit hard to see now because we've put all the linings up and you can't see all the hard work that's gone in behind it, but that will be jib stopped over the coming few weeks, and the floor put down and the scaffolding will come down, and that area will be complete probably by July. So, as we're going through the building, we are dealing with some significant issues, some which we knew, some which we didn't, and some which are not as bad as we thought, and some which are worse than what we thought. And so, this is the western central jetty wall, so it's right above the entrance on the western side. So if you were to walk out here, it's essentially the front-facing portion of the museum. And when we did our investigations, we understood that wall, but probably not quite to the full extent, that now with having scaffolding, particularly on the outside, we can get right in. One of the big things is when you're crawling through roof cavities with a head torch, sometimes it can be quite difficult to understand the sort of full macro view of the issue. And by lifting off the roof panels, we get a lot of light coming through the sarking. And so while I believe investigation was the best we could do with the access we had. This western wall is something that this portion up here is in worse condition than what we thought it would be, and that is a mixture of age and weight, and as such, that top of the jetty wall is essentially collapsing off the top of a ridge structure. So if you can imagine, it's almost like you're sagging, so that is then separating all the timber members from the top. And so we have a wall strengthening system which we're putting in up the main portion of the wall here, so up here. Then this top section here up where that truss is a bit hard to see on the screen. We need to provide further support. So you can see here some examples of where the truss support system is starting to separate, and in the ceiling cavity we're seeing big cracks across lots of the timber members that we couldn't access previously. And also, like, this is one from the outside where we can see that sag, which is obviously easier to see now, but when it's up here, it's about 22 metres in the air, so when you're doing everything from the outside, it is difficult to see, but once you have the scaffolding up and you can really see in front of you. So the solution with this one is that we are putting in a steel frame, and that will sit up in the top, so it'll actually sit behind the wall and sit on the roof so you won't see any of it, and then that will connect the roof into the existing columns that run down into the basement. And so access to all of this is about 10 metres above the floor level in level 1. And it's been critical to close out due to the pre-programmed works after this section that we are on the critical path for completion.
So I think in simple terms, one of the challenges was that that wall had a bigger curve in it than what was expected, which has created some challenges and obviously some strengthening work. It was very pleasing to see how both Watson Hughes and the architects and Heritage worked together to find a solution that wasn't invasive but also can be hidden, I guess, behind the Heritage fabric. So while it took a little bit longer and obviously it took a little bit more cost to work through those challenges, it's very pleasing that the team have come up with a very good workable solution in the time frame.
So next we go on to the Zone 3 floor. So this is the entrance floor, and this is just to show you a little bit of the inside of some of the progress. So once again, photo from last presentation on the left, and on the right is the poured slab. And this is sort of working through in like a chronological order. So we've lifted up the old topping slab, and it's unreinforced concrete slab, so it's been supported from underneath with propping from the basement, and then we've gone and we've cut in chasers, and like this is very manual work. So we have a guy here, you cut the initial chasers and he's sitting there with a sledgehammer essentially knocking out all of the chasers to then, I've skipped forward one, enable rebar to be put through the floor and then concrete to get put on top. And a couple of these images, the top centre shows you the air handling unit we've got in there to try and keep dust to the minimum for workers, and the one of the man sitting down and scooping up all the concrete pieces and putting it into a wheelbarrow and wheelbarrowing it out. So the complexity of this building from a logistical perspective is challenging and adds time to the construction. Here's just some general photos. So we've got the new lift going into Zone 2, so that will provide us lift access up into the Zone 3 atrium, which we didn't have before. We've got lots of materials turning up to site, and we try to get them inside and put them in zones that aren't in use to protect them from the weather. As we go through, we are seeing different types of damage, some that we knew and some that we didn't know about. So this is an example of where a truss was cut out and to enable the HVAC pipes to get put in several years ago. And so this one we did know about, but that's an example of now we've got to come in and do some additional work to replace the structural strength that was taken away from that. And then on the right, this is actually the same area, so we're starting to really close out areas. We've got the jib lining, and soon that scaffolding will come down. And in the middle here, we've got some pictures of Zone 4 showing the various work. At the moment, in the middle, we've got a big focus on cutting out old structural steel that was in place and then putting in new structural steel. I think everyone, as they come into work each day, they do see the building that's wrapped up and you sort of wonder what's going on under here. And there is a huge amount of work that is occurring. At the moment, we are in the northern area, so this area alone has 33,000 roof tiles that have been taken off, and we've strengthened the roof and now we're in the process of putting each of those tiles back in place. We have WACT, which is a local organisation, have younger people coming to site probably once a month to experience work experience, and as a result of that, I think up to 10 of them have actually been employed by the subcontractors, and they're all local Rotorua people that are now working in the industry and on the project. Some of these photos of basements are just to highlight the difficulties of working, getting materials through these areas, and here are a couple of pictures on the bottom right of the team denailing the old Remu floorboards, and they're being taken away to a local fabricator to be reprofiled to reduce by 10 mils to enable them to be re-put in with the structural strengthening underneath the floorboards. Happy to take any part on.
Thanks, Will. That's a great presentation and some good photos again. Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you, Jeff, very much. Will, that's looking pretty good there, and Thomas. Just the floorboards up on the mezzanine floor, why are you lifting those?
So underneath, we just basically have a structure that was built in the early 1900s that is only made up of joists, and so there's two things that are going in there. There is some fire bats, so that if there's a fire underneath, people can safely get off the floor, and then we're putting on structural ply bracing and then also steel cross bracing to structurally strengthen the floor before the floorboards go back on. It's essentially bringing the structural floor up to today's standard.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Wang, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Will and Thomas, for the really great presentation. My question was just around, I guess it's a bit of a common theme throughout the building about the weight of the weight of itself and how it affects the building. You mentioned earlier around, I guess, some part of it that's kind of the slagging, and I guess part of it would be due to the age, and the weather part of it will be because of the weight. Can you explain a little bit about what's being done, I guess, if we can prevent this to the best of our ability to lessen the impact of it in the future?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a few things that have occurred. So in places, due to the poor geotechnical nature of the ground that the building is sitting on, it appears, while we don't have original levels that it was built at 1900, that portions of the building foundations have subsided up to 100 mils in places. And so one of the challenges for the floor pour that we showed you in the atrium is that we need to put the floor back exactly where it was so that the heritage stairs can fit. And so if you actually go in today and look at the pour, it looks all wobbly and not level, but that was done to ensure that we meet how the building was so that all the heritage components that are coming back in can fit. And so to more directly answer your question, there's sort of two parts that we think where that sagging, for lack of a better term, is coming from. So one is the geotechnical nature of the soils, and so we are putting in additional foundations to support the existing foundations, and so a large portion of the project, and this work will run through until about November this year, is around putting a better base on the building. So we're sitting on a base that's more spread out, so the weight of the building is spread across more land, so it stops it from sinking in, and then B, if there was to be an earthquake, there's sort of more lever to stop it from moving. And then, as you said, it's the age of the building, and so a lot of these components just as things age, and so we are strengthening the walls with the fibre reinforced cementrix matrix, and as I explained in a previous meeting, what that does is it leaves the structural strength of the existing wall, but it puts a carbon fibre layer on the outside of it, and then it allows us to then pin in elements of the building to it to hold it rigid. And another example is of that metal truss that we're putting in, is pinning it to the truss, which then goes down onto the beams. The saving grace in the sense is that the beams that hold the building up are still in very good condition, and so structurally we can bring a lot back to those beams and then pin it off it. So in layman's terms, we're essentially trying to put in more structural bracing to pin the building off to hold it in place.
Oh, look, I might just add, we're doing a video series, and we are going to do one in the little bit of the future around the main atrium. But tying it to your question, and Will and I were in the building this morning looking at the pour, and you can still see the curvature of the floor. And the question we were asking ourselves was, that seems to come about because of the weight of those internal pumice walls have pushed down and have concave that wall. Now, whether that was there originally when it was built, or whether it's developed over time has been an interesting one. But on that instance, new foundations have been dug underneath those walls. They've been underpinned. Steel frames have been going in underneath as well. So every opportunity that we've had, we've been able to strengthen that to prevent these things from occurring again into the future.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Lee, did you have a question?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank you and your team for what's going on under that tent there, and thank you for organising a guided tour for elected members a couple of weeks ago. It's really an astonishing building, and it's an astonishing project, and we kind of made some jokes among the elected members about organising a working bee one weekend, but to see the real professionals take on a project like that, it's a wee bit different from a home hobbyist like myself embarking on a renovation of a home project. It's going to be fantastic for Rotorua once this is up and done, so well done, and thank you for your report, and thank you also for letting us know about the interesting, quirky things that you're finding, which is hardly surprising given the age and nature of the building. But thank you for the update.
Thank you, Councillor, and I think the challenge for us is that our scaffolding will hopefully come down quicker than the scaffolding next to your house.
Thank you, Councillor, for your comments. Councillor Waru, question?
Kia ora. Just have to gather myself a little bit there. Thank you, Councillor Lee. But through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Thomas, for the presentation. Just wondering, as governors, are there any health and safety matters that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, health and safety is a big focus of the project, and something that we're looking at too every week. So, with a large site, there's a lot of different subcontractors working on the site, and so the answer at this stage is that no, there isn't anything that you're concerned of, but you can sit and trust that it is a big focus of the teams.
I don't think it was not a question of trust. It was just I never saw any sort of update on that in the report. That's all.
No, Councillor. Other than that incident that was recorded a little while ago, no incidences since, and as Will said, very strong focus from Watson Hughes and the team on that front.
And with that, thanks. Can you pass on our gratitude, because that's a lot of money to make sure things like that happen well. My second question was just around the putting in steel structures and all sorts of, different materials from the heritage materials as such. These things are, and excuse my naivety, are those all part and parcel, I suppose, of working with Heritage New Zealand and understanding what we can use in terms of materials?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have a heritage architect, David Pearson Architects from Auckland, and they are essentially entrusted by Heritage New Zealand to be the guardian and ensure that the heritage elements of the building are being looked after. Due to the nature of the structural issues, sometimes we just need to use steel. A big win of the project was when we moved from having a full steel approach to having that fibre reinforced cement, so truss matrix. So what it means is that most of the steel isn't visible; it's hidden behind linings, and where possible we work that around to minimise the heritage impact. But it is the nature that we need to work out and minimise the sort of the clashes and how those materials work together.
Thank you. Got it.
Thank you, Councillor. Question from Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the report, guys. I always love reading the sentence that says the Rotorua Museum project remains on track. But we've had the worst weather probably all Easter that I can recall for a long time. Did that impact in any way in the last couple of weeks? That's the first question.
So you're not going to be able to guess my answer to this question or my response, but yes, it has impacted, but it's impacted in a positive way. Because we have a big tent across the building, it meant that a lot of the subcontractors were rained off sites. So because our site was a dry site, they could bring extra people. So we had up to 70, 80 people on site, and over that 2 or 3 week period of wet weather, we probably accelerated by 50% of the expected progress over that period. So I think Watson Hughes are doing a really good job, sort of to touch on some of your comments, Councillor Lee, and we're really pleased with how they're managing the works across the program, and as issues come up, moving them differently, and the weather's a good example of how you would expect to have lost progress, but we actually gain in that manner. And it justifies the investment of that weather protection.
Thank you. And just the other question I have on it seems like only recently, but it was some time ago, but that new part that was done on roundabout zone 2, 3 or 4, that was done, I remember we all went up there had a Christmas function up there some years ago. Has that's a new structure, has that helped in the work that's being done in that area at the moment?
Yes, so the works in the southern area, Zone 1, are very minimal. We've got a few works that we need to do because of the changes in the code between 2011 when that was work completed to now, but the scale of works are quite reduced compared to the rest of the building.
Thank you, councillors. That appears to be all the questions for Will and Thomas. Just wanted to thank you for the report and keeping us informed. A lot of that work that you show us in these reports is going to end up behind walls and under floors, and we won't be able to see that, and that's the whole intention, but it's wonderful to see it unfold and great to see that the timeline hasn't been impacted by all these things that keep cropping up in the old building. So thank you very much for keeping us updated. Cheers. Thank you. Now, there is a motion here just for the record that the committee recognises the progress made by all projects as outlined in attachments 1 to 4. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? It's Councillor O'Brien and seconded by Councillor Wing. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Now, councillors, item 8 is a resolution to move into public excluded. The reason for confidentiality is because for the council to carry out commercial activities, consideration is being given to the public interest in these matters, and the officer's advice is that the reasons for confidentiality outweigh the public interest in this matter. Thank you, councillor. The items to be discussed in this section is the confidential minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting and the Parawai Road Rising Main contract variation approval, and any questions you may have on those other reports. There is also a presentation from, just bear with me, relating to the property-related opportunity as well. So Councillor O'Brien has moved that we move